So I'm going to do a screen share with some housekeeping information, and then we'll turn it over to our guests. All right. Oops. So this is the last formal deep dive of 2021 from Spark. We are going to talk construction risk management with our friends Matt Herzog from Project Advocates and Frank Allen and Winsley Duran from the REACH program. We only have one deep dive left, and it's a fun one. And not that this isn't fun, but there may be beverages involved. We're going to have a social hour December 8th toward the end of the day. So if you are a Developer Academy graduate and you want to come celebrate and meet some of the other individuals from previous cohorts, we welcome you to do that. If you're interested in taking the Developer Academy or joining the Developer Academy in 2022, it's a great way to meet some folks and learn a little bit more about the program too, and hopefully just have some fun and celebrate. We will be doing a Developer Academy in 2022, and we will have a full calendar of additional deep dives for next year as well. We just don't have them planned yet. As always, I want to make time and space to thank our partners in this. This is a new program to the Omaha area. We've done 3 cohorts of the Developer Academy and a full year of deep dive programming, but none of it would be possible without our partners from the National Development Council and Freddie Mac. And then all of our bank supporters, Wells Fargo, US Bank, and Bank of the West. We have tremendous support locally from professionals in the field. Our sponsors include Field Day Development, American National Bank, Midwest Housing Equity Group, CIT Bank, Baird Holm, Alley Pointer, Olson, Lamper-Nearson, Great Western Bank, Access Bank, Dundee Bank, Great Southern Bank, Foundations Development and Bluestone Development, and Earhart Griffin and Associates. We are so blown away by their support and the support of folks like those who are on the call today who are giving of their time to support this initiative. We really believe in it, and we are just so grateful for their generosity. All right, that's all I have to say. So I'm going to stop sharing. Sorry, I lied. One more thing. For those of you who are new on this call, we do have, a limited amount of time, 2 hours. We're going to have Matt present first, and then Winsley and Frank will take over about halfway through. If you have questions for any of the presenters, please either message me directly in the chat, raise your hand, and then I'll get the attention of the presenters so that we can ask the questions in real time. And then typically we do have time at the end of the session for additional questions. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Matt.
Okay. Morning, everyone. Just gonna
Good morning.
Shared. See if I can do this. I wish we were all meeting in person, but we're doing the best we can with this. Maybe next time. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Matt Herzog. I work for a company called Project Advocates. We are a owner's representation firm, a project management firm here in Omaha. So we typically act as the owner on projects or the developer. So really the presentation today is going to be from that sort of perspective of what's in the best interest for the owner and for the project. So it's meant to be a broad level presentation on some of the risk items that I'm going to touch on. We're going to talk about a little bit about construction contracts, different types, where can I get some, pay applications, kind of how does the money work? How can you best protect your interests when you're paying people? Mechanics lien waiver process, kind of what that is, what you need to be aware of as you're an owner. And then we'll talk a little bit about change orders. So try to put some fun in this relatively dry topic here with some cartoons as we go along. But this is a risky part of your development as you're working a project. you're set to set out a lot of money for things that go in progress, and how can you manage that to the best of your abilities? Not saying it's foolproof, but to the best of your abilities to make sure you get what you want at the end of the day. So construction contracts, where can you find some construction contracts? So the American Institute of Architects has a website with all kinds of different contract references. They have contracts set aside for contractors. If you're hiring an architect, if you're hiring a consultant, let's say you're not hiring a general contractor, you're just hiring a subcontractor. You can find contracts for that, as well as for program manager or owner's representation firms that you may need on your project. The AIA documents, they do charge a fee for those, but you can buy one or you can buy a suite. The suite is fairly expensive, but there's at least a framework. You can always see a draft too to look at. And there's another document that's called Consensus Docs that is more geared towards contractors, subcontractors, and program managers. So really the AIA document is kind of the industry standard for larger commercial projects. They are definitely geared towards architects, so kind of know that going into it, of kind of whose interest they may always protect. But contractors typically will sign them, but may have some objections to some of the language, whereas Consensus Docs was put together more by contractors. And really the key in this piece is setting the framework of what you're getting, right? So that document is to communicate, what the remodel is supposed to be. So if you don't have a good contract to start with, you're not going to get a good project at the end of the day. And I will say, as I'm going through this, if anybody has questions or comments, just feel free to chime in. Definitely, the more interaction, the better.
Hey, Matt, I do have a question for you. So we talk a lot about the role of an owner's rep in the Developer Academy. Is this contract component something that an owner's rep would handle for a developer if they were to engage in your services?
Yeah, so typically we're involved in the business deal of the contract, which would be more really specific to the project. We'll help facilitate that contract getting in place. The legalese, we typically still would ask that your attorney reviews it, but at least on the business side of, what is the agreement of how this project's going to work?
Mm-hmm.
We would be heavily involved with that. The kind of the higher risk terms and legalese portion, we would want an attorney to look at, as we're not attorneys.
Sounds good.
So, okay, what type of contractor agreements? I'm going to focus a little bit on contractor agreements. There's kind of different ways you can engage a general contractor. In a scope, and they've given you a lump sum bid, and you are engaging them saying, I'm going to pay you $100 to put in this drain, and there's no discussion on anything else. It's just that, and they any changes to that or anything else, they could come back with a change order. It immediately takes all the risk and puts it on the general contractor. Is really the what I'll call the beauty of a lump sum contract. The challenge to it is you've got to have really good documents and really good scope put together to be able to prevent those change orders as they come. So another type of construction contract is a guaranteed maximum price, or often in the field you hear GMP. So that is, they're going to figure out what the cost of the work is, and cost of the work would be any subcontractors they need to hire, trailer rentals, porta-johns, dumpsters, whatever they need to make that project successful at the end. And then they're going to add a fee on it. A lot of contractors will calculate it as a percentage fee. So they'll look at the cost of the work plus a 4% fee, and then or a 5% fee or a 10% fee, depending on what kind of project it is. And then they sign an agreement that that's the guaranteed maximum price. So now they have risk that if there's issues that come up and things, they make mistake on the contractor side, they can't go above and beyond that. So really they're going to eat into their fee, but you know their fee. A GMP is probably the most common contract we see on commercial projects. You're working together. It gives you some transparency into the numbers. So a lump sum, a contractor is going to give you one value, and that's all you're going to see. On a guaranteed maximum price, the contract allows you to have visibility into their costs. So you can see how much they're paying the electrician, or you can see how much they're paying the framer. And it also does give you some discussion with the contractor that says, hey, I've worked with Joe's Framing before. They're terrible. We're not going to work with them. You know, pick somebody else who might be a little more expensive. Now it goes into the cost of the work plus the fee is how that GMP would get established. The third type is what is like a cost plus. This is a lot of residential contractors. You see this. This is the cost of the work plus a percentage fee. So it's going to be whatever those costs are plus a percentage fee. And as changes come about or whatever else, it's just all the cost plus a fee. There's no cap. You're just on the hook kind of for whatever it's going to take to get it done, plus their fee to manage the work. There is another type of contract that we really don't see much on the building side, but on the infrastructure side and roads, there's what's called a unit price contract, where you would have bids for a cubic yard of concrete or a cubic yard of dirt movement. And then you would just pay based upon the quantities that actually get installed. But as I said, that's a fairly rare contract on the building side of things. So what's really important in these agreements is that you're defining the scope. So the contracts, all three of these allow you to put in there, reference the architectural drawings, the mechanical drawings if you have them, reference specifications if you have them. You can even reference a plan that has markups or whatever it is. Try to define the scope as best you can in that contract, because when things go, it's everybody's happy at the beginning of the marriage, but as you move down the road and things start to veer and issues come up, and they will, you come back to that contract and have that discussion.
Hey, Matt, I had a question come in through the chat to me. Which of these contracts do you prefer to work with when you're hiring a GC?
Honestly, I prefer the guaranteed maximum price contract, and specifically because nobody's perfect. Designs aren't perfect. Contractors aren't perfect. Even owners aren't perfect. And I like to have a mechanism to manage what I'll call imperfections throughout the project and things that come up. And if you're in a lump sum, it is immediately an adversarial relationship. The contractor, as soon as they sign on the dotted line, it is their risk, and it's a risky business. And they are looking out for one person and one person only at that point. Whereas at least with a guaranteed maximum price, there is skin in the game with both sides. And it gives the contractor a little more flexibility to manage the costs of the project. So that's my preference. The other piece to the contract you want to make sure you define is schedule. So everybody thinks of a contract as a dollar value, but you need to define what your expectations are for, if it's a fourplex, what's your expectations for when you can lease that, right? That's a big deal. And putting in the date of, I need to occupy by January 1st, 2022, substantial completion needs to happen. So defining that schedule too is important, right? There's terms in the industry that say beneficial occupancy, which is when is it a benefit to the owner to be able to use the space. And then there's also substantial completion, which would be when you can get a certificate of occupancy. So that would come from the authority having jurisdiction in that area would give you a certificate of occupancy when all the codes requirements have been passed, inspections have been passed. But you still may not be able to fully occupy and benefit from it. So you have to define what date is important to you. And there's ways to manage that. A lot of contracts we see with multifamily housing have clauses that say liquidated damages. So in contracts, there's consequential damages and liquidated damages. Liquidated damages is a defined value in the contract that says for every day past January 1st, you don't deliver, you owe me $150 a day or whatever it is. And you're trying to define that to really what your loss would be from not being able to occupy. You're going to lose revenue. You're going to have to maybe put somebody up in temporary housing because they broke their lease to move into your space and it's not ready. It doesn't preclude you from getting consequential damages. They're just harder to define. That's why I prefer to have at least a clause in there for liquidated damages that gives you some stick at the end to push the contractor to get finished. And, you know, the other part to why I like guaranteed maximum price is I don't always want the lowest bidder because that could look like a drain that's at a high point and doesn't drain water. So you want to try to get the best qualified bid. And when you're doing a lump sum, you're going to get the lowest provider. Okay, so now you're moving down your project. You've got a contract in place. You've kind of defined how the agreement's going to work. In that contract, it would define how payment's going to work. Typically, it's one pay application a month, and you would, as an owner, would get 30 or 45 days from approval to pay that amount. If not, they're going to charge you interest. This is a really it's a difficult process, and as owners, it's good that it takes a while because it protects you. But if you're the subcontractor with labor out there spending, they get a paycheck every week, and if it takes 45 days to get paid, it's hard. So this is a negotiable piece when you're negotiating with contractors of, maybe I can pay you sooner and get a better deal. So things to think about when you're writing up a contract. You want to, there's again, AIA documents out there. Oftentimes the industry standard is the G702, G703, and I'll show you kind of what that is in the next slide, but that's going to really be your pay application from the general contractor that'll say, here's the schedule of values, here's how much they earn this month, here's how much they get paid. The other piece you'll want to define in the contract is retainage. Are you going to hold retainage? So retainage is, I earned $100 and I'm billing you $100 for pouring this sidewalk. As the owner, I'm going to pay you $90 and I'm going to keep $10 because the project's not done yet. And if there's any issues that come up between now and then, or if the approval, I don't think it's done right, I've at least got some leverage to get you to do that. So it used to be typical was 10% held on a contract. There is new law, and relatively new law, it's been around for a while. Nebraska, you cannot hold more than 5% of the total project value back. So really this is a prompt payment act to make sure people are getting paid. So I've seen a lot of contracts get written at 10%, and then when the project gets halfway done, they'll reduce it to 5%. Sometimes it's just easier just to write it as 5% and just carry that all the way through. But that piece of dollars is a really good tool to make sure that at the end of the day, you've got everything you need. Because if you're billed out, you lost all leverage. So having money helps as the owner. So this is what I would call the G702 AIA document. So this is a summary of the pay application. So it's going to have, who it's to, what the project is from the contractor, what's it for, what number is it, what date is it, what time period does it pass through, And then this is really a summary of what's being billed. So you'll have the, the original sum of the contract. Have there been any change orders? So on this particular one, there were some change orders approved. So what the total contract value is, this total completed and stored is, and you'll see the next page, I'll show you where this comes from, but this is how much work has been put in place or how much they've earned and they're billing for. The retainage here is how much money we're still holding. So on this particular project, we did a variable because certain materials needed to pay 100% right away. And we got, that material was on site ahead of time. And in the crazy market we're in right now, we had to negotiate this as we would pay you 100% for the materials, but we'd hold retainage on the labor as just a way to manage the contractor's risk as well as ours. So then you'll have the total earned less retainage. So this would be the dollars that you would pay out, and then how much they billed in the last certificate. So how much is currently due, and then what the balance is to finish, including retainage. So the contractor will come up here and they'll sign kind of an affidavit that says, this is what we think has been done. You can often have an architect or an engineer, or sometimes our name is here as an owner's representative to sign a certificate of payment that says, we've reviewed this and we agree with it. And then this would be the amount that the check should be cut for. So that's the summary sheet, and the G703 is the schedule of values that kind of calculates that. So for this particular project, they had these schedule of values for what I'll call supervisory or project management time, general requirements. General requirements is going to be toilets and dumpsters and, job site cleaning, those types of things. And then they had site construction, grading, irrigation, kind of everything all the way through. This was a parking lot. Not a very exciting project, but a parking lot. And one thing to note in here in this contract, so this was a guaranteed maximum price contract, and we allowed them to carry contractor contingency in the contract. So this is contingency for the contractor's risk, and they've used some of it, but they have this left over. So what happens with that at the end of this job is negotiable, and it's in the contract for this particular job that says any dollars saved on the GMP, 100% goes back to the owner. I've seen it be 50% goes back to the owner, and the contractor gets to keep 50%. It can be written any way, and part of a guaranteed maximum price contract is at the end of the job, you get full audit rights. So you can go through all their bills, everything to kind of get an idea of make sure their costs are real. So then this would have work completed. This is really what's been put in place. So what was from the previous application, what is actually done this period. So this is really what you're checking. Did they finish up landscape? Was it 100% done? If it's not, you shouldn't approve this and you shouldn't pay it. You've got a column for materials presently stored. So kind of going back to that example, if you're buying things and they're storing them, let's say they're storing them at their warehouse, plumbing fixtures are crazy right now. So contractors get like 4 days from Ferguson to buy a plumbing fixture. And if you don't, the price can go up. So oftentimes we're buying those plumbing fixtures, but the job site's not in any condition to get them. So they're being stored somewhere off site. You'd want to keep track of that. And the reason why is if where they're stored gets hit by a tornado or burns down, you've got some record that I had $100,000 worth of plumbing fixtures there, and I had insurance on it, or they had insurance on it, and that's my money I already paid. And then total completed and stored, and then really just the balance to finish would be kind of the math of what's the agreed upon value less what they billed for, and then how much retainage. and you can see we're like this project, we were holding some retainage for some paving pieces and negotiated at this point. We had released some, but still held some. And that's kind of the payout process. So this happens every month. And it's just the key as an owner is to make sure they're not getting out ahead. Because if you have paid somebody fully on landscaping, but you're not happy with what the plants are, or you're not happy with the way it's turned out, your leverage to get it changed is diminished. The other risk is if you have overpaid through a period of, let's say, I'll use electricians because it's happened more on those recently, and they go out of business. You need to know that at least you've paid somebody for the work that's in place and you have money to go hire somebody else. So really, this is an important piece to manage those dollars as they go out.
Hey, Matt, we had a question come in. This process is for projects that are financed with a construction loan, or is this for, do you recommend this for all projects? Like some of our folks have really small developments.
Yep.
And they're serving as their own kind of GC. So when is this kind of detail recommended?
So I would say banks are probably going to require something like this. So anytime you have a bank in the financing, and it is a process, but if the bank's doing it, they're doing it for a reason, and it's to protect their risk. So if you're doing something without a bank, you want to have something. It may not need to be to this level, but you want to have something that keeps track of the bills so you can manage how much is going out and what they're claiming they've earned. Because if you don't, and things go bad, you're in trouble.
Great, thank you.
So anecdotally, we did a renovation in my house, and I did this same process for a project in my house just to manage it. So it can be big or small. Okay, lien waivers. So what this kind of goes to that same point of when do you do lien waivers? What is a lien waiver and release? So a mechanic's lien is basically a legal claim against your property. They can record that with the county, and that prevents you from then selling that property. So if you hire someone to come redo your driveway at your house and you don't pay them, their recourse is to file a lien against your property. And basically that prevents you from selling that property until that issue is resolved. Now, a court would need to grant them that lien right. But it's very important to do. So, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, they probably didn't get the lien release, and the guy had the wrong idea here, but
this is my favorite joke, Matt.
So, there's different types of liens, and I'm going to go through this at kind of a high level, but and basically the way this process works is if I was getting an invoice from a contractor, I would want at a minimum a conditional partial lien waiver from the general contractor that would say, I, A, B, and C general contractor have upon payment, so it's conditional, right? You haven't paid them yet. Upon receiving payment, I release my lien rights to the property, and that I have paid everyone else downstream. So really that conditional partial lien waiver is only conditioned upon them receiving the check. So if you never pay them, that lien waiver doesn't do anything. If it's only enforceable on the amount of work they've put in place through a certain time period. So, it doesn't work for work that would be put in after that point. But this is important. So you can do conditional and you can do lien waivers from the general contractor. You can require the general contractor to have them on subcontractors. You can require subcontractors to have them on vendors. Because often the person who doesn't get paid is a second or third tier group, and you may not know about it, but at least if you have something from the general contractor that says they've paid everybody, you've got some argument that says, hey, I paid and you signed off that you've paid everybody else. This is no longer my issue, it's your issue. On most projects we work on, we're requiring this from subcontractors because we want to know that the subcontractor has paid their suppliers and their subcontractors. So the way this process would work is they'd submit the bill with a conditional lien waiver. You write them a check, and that conditional lien waiver becomes enforceable at that point once they have the check. You can also ask for an unconditional lien waiver that basically says, I have been paid and I am releasing all my lien rights and waiving anything else that can come up. So that's the difference between conditional and unconditional. So those terms are kind of on the top of these. This is an example of a lien waiver. Actually, on this project, we were acting as the contractor, and we were working for the Albion Municipal Airport. This is quite a few years ago. But we were getting we were providing them conditional waivers each month that says, you know, in the amount of this payment through a certain period of time, the Omaha Electric Service is saying they have paid, they've paid all their subs, and they'll use that money to pay any labor, taxes, anything. And this helps too if Omaha Electric goes out of business. Well, the government's coming for the taxes. So if you have something that says we paid them and it's not my issue, they didn't pay the taxes, this will help you in that process. So that's kind of a conditional partial. It's only for part of the project that you would get each month. So then there's to continue this, there's what's called a final lien waiver. So this is the project done. You're going to submit either a conditional, again, conditional means they once they get the check, it becomes enforceable, or unconditional, they have been paid and you're final signed off. So the contractor at that point is waiving all their lien rights. They're also saying there's no claims. So you're getting the general contractor to sign this because you want proof that they're not going to come back in 6 months and say, hey, you didn't pay me because you switched sinks and I had to buy a new sink. You have some documentation that says there's no outstanding claims. We're done. You've been paid in full. So a good tool to use to have them sign. And most subcontractors are familiar with this process, and most general contractors are. So again, the unconditional on this particular project was basically saying that I have been paid in total full. Beaver excavation is done. We have no claims. So at the end of the day, the owner can, go to bed at night and not have to worry about somebody coming back. So, question, does this come up often? It probably comes up once a project for us where somebody makes some kind of claim. And it could be, Ready Mix, the concrete company says, hey, your concrete contractor hasn't been, they haven't been paying their bills and they owe us this money. We delivered concrete to your project. We're going to file a lien. And so it's really, how do you make sure that has happened? And if you have those documents, it makes it a lot easier to have those discussions. So there's other ways to manage this risk of contractors not paying people. One thing you can do is joint checks. So that would be you hired ABC General Contracting to do work, and you know that you're going to buy a bunch of plumbing fixtures from Ferguson. So you would write a check to Ferguson with ABC written on there. So ABC has to sign off that it's going through, but the money, the money's going direct to Ferguson, and there's no questions that the money got to the right person. We see joint checks, general contractors use joint checks a fair amount on subs that have had history of payment issues. And then how do you know you're good? So one thing is just that constant communication. So if you're walking your project and you see the electrician, just how's it going? You getting paid on time? Those types of things. Just have those discussions while you're there, just to make sure everybody's getting paid, because projects come to a pretty good screeching halt when money's not flowing. So it's how do you manage keeping that going? So last kind of part here is the change order, right? This is a good contractor, real small original contract, but they got the big boat off the change order. So how do you manage this risk of contractors claiming that, they didn't know about it, this is a change? So there's different types of changes. There's a design change. So you didn't, as the owner, you didn't say, I want to put a third bedroom on this house. It just came up that the design documents weren't specific enough and maybe didn't call out a door handle or something. So how do you manage those? Again, you have some contingency built in to manage some of that, because the drawings aren't going to be perfect. Architects are not going to take the risk that their drawings are imperfect. Now, if they make a real error on the plans, you can go after the design team for that. But if it is just a minor coordination area, it becomes difficult to go after. Then there's scope change. There is, hey, we were doing a duplex, now we're doing 3 duplexes. That's a scope change, so you can expect that. There's code changes. So the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction, the plans could be approved, you have a permit, but the inspector comes out and says, nope, you can't do it this way. You got to change the door swing or do whatever. You got to do it. You can fight and try. Rarely do you win, but you're going to have to make that change. And the contractor had no fault, right? They built it the way the plan said. The inspector came in and changed. And then there's unforeseen conditions. So where you're going to dig a basement foundation and you come across a buried fuel tank. Happens a lot. What do you, that's not fair to put that on the contractor, that they had no idea that was there. And then in renovations, there's often things as you dig into them, you find unknowns. And this piece of the risk, you're trying to define as much as you can, but the more you push on the contractor to carry this risk, the more they're going to raise their price and fee. So in my mind, I'd rather manage the risk with them and haven't known how much they're carrying for these things. That way we share some of that pain, but we also share in the benefits of, if there aren't these things, we get the value back for the owner. So that's kind of it. These are some fun, just when things go wrong. This particular house has a really nice garage. They just don't have a driveway that goes to it. This one, they put the toilet wherever they wanted and it didn't quite work, so just notched the door. I do like this one probably the most, because the College of Architecture and Planning should be able to center their sign and not have it come on the side. But contractors have a reputation of changes, and probably known, I think, as owners, it's trying to manage that risk the best you can, making sure people get paid, making sure you have a good contract that you may not go back to all that much, but it's there, it's in the drawer. And then just being active in your projects to see things like, this is a preventable thing you could see when you're walking a project early on.
I love that the C is now on the brick right by it.
Well, they fit it in. It just didn't quite, it wasn't fully planned.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. Are there any other questions from folks? Thanks for sending those in via the chat. All right. That was a lot of great information. Thank you so much, Matt. We are now going to switch over to Winsley and Frank.
All right, thanks, Matt. I loved the picture. All right, so yeah, we don't have any cool pictures quite as cool. Well, in fact, we don't have any pictures. But Matt, I loved yours. We do have a lot of great information, and Angela, you kind of alluded to it at the beginning. The The next one is going to be more fun because it has drinks. But what is more fun than insurance? Oh my goodness, this is an exciting topic. It just doesn't get any better than insurance and bonding on a gray, cloudy day. I apologize. I thought we were going to have a little bit more natural light. So we don't have any cool web lights shining on my face, but we will move forward. Hopefully you guys can see me. You guys can hear me. My name is Winsley Durand. I'm with the REACH team, and we're here in town. We provide technical assistance for small contractors. And Frank, introduce yourself, or you can just speak. They'll hear you on mine.
Okay, so I'm Frank Allen. I'm the project manager for the REACH team. 3 years new to the program, but long history of making signage fit on the front of the building. So I've done that. We've run into situations, but think on your feet, take the and, make an and sign, and the C fits, and everybody's happy. So it's good and it's fun, and I'm looking forward to working with you folks today, and hopefully being a reference to you in the future.
All right, I am going to share my screen here.
Thanks, Sonia.
All right, and
We're not seeing it yet, Winsley.
okay. Let's see, hold on. I am sorry. Take me just a second here. I had it up already, prepared to go, and it take me just a moment to get back there. Okay. Everybody seeing it now, potentially?
Yep, we are.
Perfect. All right. So, and is it presenting? There we go.
Sure.
All right. So REACH program. Frank, do you want to talk a little bit about, we're just going to give just a very brief synopsis about what we do here, and hopefully give a little bit of color what we do later.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And Angela, just give me the signal if I get to talking too long. So for Wednesday, kick me on the table. But so the REACH program is a capacity building program. Well, first of all, let me say this. It's free, and everybody should enjoy free as far as gaining resources, insight into what you do and how you do it. But again, it's a capacity building program. It's a race and gender neutral, open to small business in Omaha and the surrounding areas. We look at it as kind of building better together, building stronger businesses, and being a little organic as far as meeting you where you're at and being able to carry you to where you need to be. We have access to many resources. That's probably one of the main things about the chamber. We are good to get to know people, and we know a lot of them. So stop down. Again, just call, text, email, smoke signal, whichever way you want to do it. Get a hold of us, and we will get you connected to the things, to the resources, that being human and financial, as you come into your next challenge. So just 3 real quick priorities with REACH. We look to increase business acumen. We have a very strong educational piece, mentoring, and things of that sort. And lastly, again, access to capital, and that being human and financial.
Cool.
That's it.
And so some of those resources, people have lots of questions. A lot of those questions happen to have to do with insurance and bonding. And so while we do not provide the insurance and bonding directly, we do sit down and help folks. In a past life, I used to be a bond underwriter, and can help people get themselves prepared so that they can get the maximum amount of bonding that they need. So we're just going to jump right into this. Actually, what I was going to do is, so on the insurance side, basically, as we are looking to get started on this, It's really important for any new developer to understand the extent of its insurance coverages, and ensure that it has adequate insurance to cover their very unique circumstances. Each contractor is unique. They have a different set of risks that are associated with them. Today, the objective is not to provide you with all of the knowledge that you're going to need to know everything, but hopefully to give you a good overview and realize what you may or may not need as a developer, which is very different, or not extremely different, but different enough from the contractor so we're going to just let you know some very specific things to developers. Just realize every situation is different. You're going to need your insurance to be tailored specifically to you and your company. And there are going to be so many things that you just won't see coming. And we want to help you put in place the mechanisms to help you. So many folks really determine that, oh, you know, this is a place where we're gonna cut some expenses. We don't need, you know, the Cadillac of insurance. And so sometimes I liken people trying to get insurance at the last moment. You know, something is happening to them and they're like, oh crap, I need to call my insurance company. It's kind of like being in an accident and while you're hitting the other car, throwing on your seatbelt. You really need to be prepared well in advance. So what is insurance? It's really a transference of risk. In life, in business, there's risks every day. Life is uncertain. You might, as your business, be responsible for maybe a small property loss. Maybe it's a loss of life. Really what you have to do is figure out what is the value of the potential loss that you could incur, and can your business survive it? When you're purchasing insurance, you're purchasing the ability to eliminate the uncertainty. Are things typically interactive? Because I would love to get some feedback from our folks. So
Yeah, sure. We can ask a question and people can write it in the chat or just unmute themselves and answer.
perfect. So question for you guys is when you're trying to eliminate or minimize your risk that you have to pay when you have a loss, what is that maximum amount called when you have insurance? Anybody going to throw it out there in the chat? Ooh, we have a chat, and it is the deductible. Mike Sullivan, ding, 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 ding. You are correct. So thank you for participating. Thank you for participating. I really appreciate that. So this deductible is really the price you pay to be able to sleep at night. You know that minimum amount is what you're going to have to pay in order to satisfy that loss. So insurance for business. We're just going to cover a few of these. These are going to be some standard ones that most businesses are going to have. You're going to have your general liability insurance. Oh, Frank, go ahead. Do you want to mention that?
Yeah. So Mike, you've won. Hopefully this, can everybody see that? Oh, I probably can't see it.
Yeah, they can see it.
Okay. Mike Sullivan, free combo meal that runs it. Thank you for your efforts.
All right. So general liability insurance. This is really that covers the damage that you cause to other people or property. It pays for the damages for which the business is found liable. Now, you might be liable for more or less, but it's really what is determined and oftentimes negotiated by insurance companies up to the policy limits. It also pays for attorney's fees and other legal defense expenses. It also pays medical bills of people who are injured by or on the premises of the business. Property insurance compensates a business if the property used in the business is lost or damaged. And it covers various types of common perils like fire, theft. It covers not only a building or structure, but what also insurers refer to as personal property, meaning office furnishings, inventory, raw materials, machinery, computers. And some words in here are may and can and shall. These are all very important words. And I think Matt would agree, as in contracts, construction contracts, your contract with your insurance company. These words are very important as well. May, can, shall, because they might or might not be covered. All of the things that are in any of the insurance contracts that you have, it's going to be very important for you to read through to figure out what is and is not covered by your policies. So work comp, it pays for medical care and replaces a portion of lost wages for an employee who is injured in the course of employment, regardless of who's at fault. And when a worker dies of injury sustained while working, the insurance provides compensation to the employee's family. If you have any employees that are not owners of the company, then you're required to have work comp, especially for our contractors. As a contractor, work comp for non-owner employees is mandatory in order to obtain the contractor registration through the Nebraska Department of Labor. Business auto. This provides, well, of course, coverage for your autos owned by the business. There's one important thing, because we have so many folks that have their personal car that they use for business. So there's something called non-owned auto. It's very inexpensive, but on your personal policy, if you utilize your vehicle for work, you should get a rider called non-owned auto, and that will help cover that auto in case it is used for work. Now, as a developer, let's just say maybe you have, maybe you slap a sign on the side of it, but it's owned by your company. If you get in an accident and the other company says, hey, there was a sign on the side of this and we believe it was a business auto, your company's your personal insurance can deny the claim because your personal auto is being used for business if you don't have the non-owned auto clause. If you are, mostly if you are a contractor and you've got paint in the back or wood or things like that, is very obvious. It's less obvious if you are a developer, but it is also something I think you should know. Umbrella policies, and these are designed to protect for unusually high losses. It provides protection when your policy limits of your underlying policies are all used up. So maybe you got in an accident and you're being sued for $1 million and your coverage was only $500,000. Your umbrella would kick in and take care of the rest of that. All right, so a BOP, a business owner's policy. It has many of these features here. And you're saying, well, maybe these are the same things that were on the last page. Yes, you're absolutely right. But a BOP is kind of one big policy that takes a whole bunch of different kinds of policies, rolls it up together. So as a small business, you may want to take a look, or your insurance agent may talk to you about a BOP. And again, just rolling all of these coverages up together. So this is the piece. So those other ones are very standard kinds of insurances for all small businesses, but specifically for developers, we have real estate development professional liability insurance. Now that's a mouthful. What does that all mean? So large and small real estate developments can take several months or even years to plan. Often there are several officers, directors, employees. There are so many moving parts. The real estate development professional liability insurance is unique in that it insures against the usual services conducted by real estate developers. There are many ways to get yourself in trouble, more than you can ever imagine. So I'm going to read something here. It's specifically the definition of what these things will cover. And it's, let's see, here we go. Real estate development professionals liability can provide coverage for wrongful acts. Now that's a whole nother definition, but committed by the developer during the preparation, negotiation, transmittal, awarding of the design and construction of bid packages. It covers while you are obtaining proper permits, variances, consents, easements, anything related to the management, supervision, and coordination and design of the construction, and also covers things regarding other issues with real estate agents, title companies, and property managers. Now, of that, there are so many different subcategories, so many steps that you would take. There's lots of room for you to make a mistake somewhere in all of those different types of activities that you would have to undergo. This particular insurance is specifically for real estate developers to cover you for every aspect where you are going to be liable for something, where you could possibly make a mistake that cost somebody else money and they would then sue you. Question, brownfield sites. Is anybody familiar with what a brownfield site is? Oh, have somebody throw it in the chat if you are familiar with that. Ooh, quick. Yes, environmental hazard areas. All right, Donnell Brown. He is a winner too. We will get you one of these. So basically a brownfield site, the easy definition that I understand it is any site that either is contaminated or could be contaminated. Oh, all right. And now it used to be an EPA contractor. All right, good on you. So you are very familiar with brownfield sites and all the different things that that are potentials for liabilities there. So unused and underperforming lots may require special remediation. The EPA imposes additional demands aimed at safeguarding the environment when developing these projects. So especially, you know, in our underserved markets, kind of North and South Omaha, there are lots of things that may be buried there as you're driving along and you are looking at a lot and it's got a little dip in it. Odds are there's somebody bulldozed a house there and the remnants of it have rotted and they've sunk. You never know what all is included in those things. So this insurance will help insure you against the risk of finding unknown environmental contamination that requires cleanup. It will, there's just, I guess, all of the government regulations that are out there can add significant cost when you come across a brownfield site. So Mike has a question here. Does development liability insurance fluctuate? Oops, while the questions are coming in, they're rolling past. Hold on, I got to scroll back up here. Fluctuate due to the size and cost of project. Yes, so basically all insurance is going to be evaluated by the amount of risk that the insurance company is taking on. The larger the project, the larger the cost of the project. Typically that means there is more risk for the insurance company. So your premiums will typically go up with the size of the project.
Next question, how do they typically price the policy?
So hopefully that also added a little bit of flavor to that question as well. that, again, typically it is the size of the project, but what drives that price more than anything is the scopes of work that are going to be done. So I'm going to just take a contracting example. So if you are an interior house painter or let's say a carpet layer, your liability, the risk to that job is less than maybe say if you were a roofer. If you are a roofer, your prices are going to be higher because of the risk involved with the work. There are often times that there are standard markets and there's something called surplus lines. So if your agent says, oh, hey, you know, we're going to have to take this policy to a surplus lines agent, that's when you know you're about to have to take out your wallet and maybe ask your friend for their wallet as well, because surplus lines just means it's not the standard kinds of activities that are deemed to be low risk. And so when you get into high risk types of things, the pricing goes up dramatically. All right. Oh, there we go. All right. So the environmental insurance. Oh, and then there's something called first party builder's risk policy, or sometimes it's called course of construction policy. Construction projects face many challenges. One of the biggest challenges that real estate developers face is maintaining the construction schedule. Since construction projects adhere to strict schedules, both the owners and the contractors want to avoid delays. Quicker you can get in, quicker you can get out. Oh, and I am unfortunately advancing before I want to. You're profitable when you can get in, get out. Builders' risk policies were created to ensure a quick resolution if a property claim occurs on a construction project. So Matt talked a little bit about some claims, maybe liens getting thrown in there. When stuff starts to get messy, that is oftentimes when this builder's risk policy will kick in. It adds in minimizing delays to the overall construction project. Policies ensure against accidental loss or damage to contractors' work and the property during construction, and extend coverage to equipment and materials and supplies that are all used on the project. It covers the project and so again, you have to be very specific, ask lots of questions to make sure, but it can include the owner, the general contractor, and subcontractors. This broad coverage is specifically designed to protect the work site during the development process. And it's often an addition to the protection afforded by the commercial general liability policy. So many of the insurance agents that you have, they're what I call 70%ers. They passed their insurance by the skin of their teeth. They got their 70% required, and they are most knowledgeable about personal auto and home, and a little bit about your business owner's policies. But when it gets into very specific things, it's going to be most beneficial for you to find somebody that specializes in developers or construction insurance, so that they are going to know exactly the coverages that your particular company is going to need. So when we talk about tips for accurate coverage, you actively want to engage your agent. You want to ask lots of questions. And if you walk in and you tell your agent, hey, here's what I do, and they say, hey, we got exactly what you're going to need, and they start just giving you something that is kind of one of their canned policies without really diving deep into exactly who you are and what you do and how you're going to use subcontractors. They're not asking you lots of things. then odds are they're not going to know enough about you to cover you properly. Don't leave anything out when you're talking with them. So oftentimes we'll have folks that will approach their insurance agent and they will say, hey, we do, items A, B, and C, but maybe they do item D, maybe not a lot, but it's something that they're actively engaged in. And if you don't specifically have many things covered, they will be excluded and you could be exposing yourself to a good deal of liability because it's not specifically covered by your insurance. And don't unnecessarily add anything in. We have lots of folks that make the mistake of trying to inflate what they do. And maybe they do two things really well, and that's what they do. You might start telling your insurance agent, well, we do this and that and the other as well. And it might be something that you might do in the future or that you have the potential of doing. But if you add in those things that you're not actually engaged in, you're going to be paying for coverages that are covering things you don't do. You're spending your money unnecessarily. And most importantly is read your policy. It is the least exciting thing you will ever do. But I can tell you, you will be surprised by so many things that are in there when you read it and it says, oh, this is not covered. Well, that just seems really stupid. Why would it not be covered? You're going to make lots of assumptions about what is covered, what is not covered. And the only way for you to know exactly what your exposure is to read your policy from cover to cover. And you may also want to engage some assistance because not all of it is really in English. There's some legalese that you may or may not understand. And if you do have those questions, you should definitely, first of all, ask your insurance agent to go through and explain those things to you. If you walk out of there and you're still not 100% sure, or you feel a little uneasy that you're not understanding everything, you can contact us. We'll help put you in contact with folks that can help you specifically understand that policy. So here's a question. Contractor working on your project has done he has really crappy workmanship, thoroughly messes up a part of the project they're working on. The work needs to be ripped out and redone. What percentage of your loss is covered by their liability insurance? Anybody know? I need some Jeopardy music here. Do, 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 do. I know somebody's going to throw something in the chat here in just a moment. I'm counting on you guys. Help me out. All right, here we go. Oh, we've got a couple. Zeros. Yes, you guys are absolutely correct. 0. There we go. There is it. Liability insurance does not cover crappy workmanship. So if you are the project owner, you are the developer, you have engaged contractors to come in and do work for you, there is a way for you to ensure that if there's crappy work done or people haven't gotten paid, that you will be able to be covered for this. So it's bonding. This is a question many of our small contractors come in and they have lots of questions about, and they say, hey, I'm required to have bonding. Is this insurance? Well, kind of. And is it insurance that covers them? No, the insurance, the bonding does not protect the contractor that gets the bonding. It protects the project owner.
Before we get any further, and I apologize, looks like Donnell and Andrea both had questions regarding insurance.
Oh, okay.
So maybe we could just drop back. How do they typically price the policies? And then the second question, excuse me, insurance is this insurance per project or is it ongoing policy? And then how soon do we obtain one as far as the policies?
All right, so, like in the legal world, every time you ask a question, they say it depends. There are some things that it depends here. So, yes, you can get insurance on a per project basis, or you can get coverage that basically you say these are the scopes of work that we're doing. So depending on the kind of policy, so let's just say it's a work comp policy, you're going to tell them we're going to have payrolls in the neighborhood of $500,000. At the end of the year, they're going to do an audit and they are going to see, hey, you estimated $500,000, but if you had only 300,000, well, then you may get a refund on that. If you spent $1 million, then they're going to charge you double. They're going to do an audit or an adjustment at the end of that policy period. For your general liability, things like that, again, they evaluate the scopes of work that you do. They figure out what kinds of volume of work that you're going to do, and it's adjusted like that. You can go through and say, hey, I'm going to buy liability and kind of coverages on a per project basis. I would say that once you start getting, lots of projects, you get kind of to a much more sophisticated level, then that might be something where you look at, especially really large projects or institutional kinds of projects that you might want to look at insurance on a per project basis. But as you're getting started out, you're probably just going to want insurance that covers your company as a whole. And then again, this depends on, you might start up a new LLC for each particular project that you have. That can get into, then you have accounting for each project, for each company, then you have insurance. So again, it depends, but I think the answer you're looking for is you probably just want something that covers everything as your company as a whole.
So how soon do we obtain one? How soon will they secure a insurance policy?
So as soon as you have something to insure. So if you have purchased a property, then you're going to need insurance on that property right away. If you are starting the processes, so that whole list of things I read off, all the different processes that you may need to engage in as a developer, as soon as you start engaging in any of those development and development related processes, you probably want the liability insurance that covers you. So if you've done something stupid or you've left something out, you've not done something that you should have done, those things are covered. And so really, once your business is doing things, doing stuff, or owns property, that is the point where you need insurance.
Any other questions out there? All right, let's go back to bonding.
Okay. All right, so who does the bond protect? We already talked a little bit about that. And it is, of course, the project owner. Who pays for the bond? Well, initially, it is the contractor. The contractor will pay for their bond. They will go through the process of going to their surety, and they will go through and say, yes, we approve you, and here's what the cost is going to be. Now, however, ultimately, it's the project owner that pays for that bond, because as the contractor submits their bid to you as the developer, if they know that a bond is required, they're going to put the cost of that bond into their bid. And so ultimately, you as the project owner will be paying for the cost of that bond. And it is, again, you may say, we want the warm fuzzies that if somebody messes this thing up completely, that somebody will pay to undo the damage and redo it correctly. And that me as a developer, I am going to be protected. I can sleep at night. If you already have the warm fuzzies for the general contractor that you're utilizing, you may just say, no, I feel very comfortable. And for the extra couple percent that that the contractor would pay for the cost of the bond, that you want to save yourself and the general contractor that money and put it in your pocket, but then you are assuming much more risk. You're assuming that that general contractor will get the project done and get it done right and get it done on time and pay all of the suppliers and vendors on that project. How do you obtain bonding? A lot of times, I would say, well, first of all, you can reach out to the REACH program. Being a former bond underwriter, I can go through, we can talk through all of the things that you're going to need, help you get those things assembled, start thinking about some of the items that are part of the underwriting process, like they look at what kind of liquidity, what kind of cash do you have on hand? That factors into, if you have no money at all and you get into a problem, odds are you won't be able to spend your way out of that problem and there will be a bond claim. So there are many different factors that they look at. We can help you with that. You can contact a bonding agent directly. And I would definitely say if you have an insurance agent that you have a good relationship with, I would start with them, but only if they have a bonding specialist. If you are with a Geico or somebody that is not, they don't have people that specialize in bonding, I would definitely suggest that you find somebody that does specialize in bonding. You will want to identify what are all the underwriting requirements up front, so that you will know right away whether it's something that you could potentially qualify for, or if it's something that you're going to need to do some work on to be able to come back later and qualify. And identify the required documents. So, and I believe on the next page, get your financial house in order. You're going to need to know your credit score. You're going to need to have financial statements, tax returns. There's lots of information that you're going to need in hand to be able to get the best rate. There are some bonding companies you can go to, and they will just look at your credit score. If you have a great credit score and it's a smaller amount, typically under $250,000 or typically under $500,000, you can get a bond just off of your credit score. But the rate, the premium that they're going to charge you is going to be much more than if you had provided all of the underwriting documents for them to really be able to evaluate the risk that they're undertaking. So definitely get your financial house in order. Oh, we just talked about that. Know your credit score. Clean up deal killers. So as we look at deal killers, tax liens. If you have a tax lien, you are not getting a bond. If you have unpaid child support, you are not getting a bond. You could have perfect credit. You could be an awesome company, but they figure if you cannot pay for your own child, that if you get into some sort of jam, you are not going to pay them. If you have an active bankruptcy, That is, again, a deal killer. With your tax returns and financial statements, again, these are things that you should have. But if you haven't filed those in a while, or at all, then that is also going to be something that they're going to look at to say they're going to question the ability of you to actually run your business. What's commonly required is 3 years of personal tax returns, 3 years of business tax returns, but only if your company has been in business 3 or more years. So if you've only been in business 1 year, then you would just only be required to present the 1 year. Personal financial statement, there's an SBA form that just about everybody accepts. An aged receivables report. So if people owe you money and your receivables are older than 90 days, the bonding company will not consider that as an asset. Anything older than 90 days, they start to bring into question of whether you're going to get paid. And so then that weakens your financial position. And there's a contractor's questionnaire that everybody has, and it just asks the standard kinds of things so that they get to know who your company is, and you're going to need a bank reference. Angela, looks like you might have had a question.
Yeah, we had a question coming through the chat asking about how do outstanding student loans impact the ability to be bonded?
So student loans, as long as they are, as long as they're being paid, student loans do not necessarily directly affect your ability to get bonding. Now, if you have student loans that are in default, because typically most of the student loans are government backed, especially if you are, say you're looking for an SBA guaranteed bond, and you owe the government money and you're not paying on that, well, that's going to be a problem. But if you have student loans and you're paying them, that should be fine. If you have a very large amount of student loans, it can impact your credit score a bit, which could then indirectly have an impact on whether you'd be able to get a bond. Your credit scores, just like if you're going to a bank and you're looking to get traditional bank financing, a good credit score to have is 670, 680 or above. Also the bonding companies, again, like to see those good credit scores. They can work with people that are 600 and above, but again, the lower your scores, the more hair there is on the deal, the higher your rate is going to be. And questions and discussions. So now Frank here spent many years as a general contractor. And I spent some time on the insurance company side, and Frank has spent side on the general contractor side dealing with insurance. So from between the both of us, we should hopefully be able to answer some questions from either of those perspectives.
Please feel free to unmute yourself if you do have a question, or if you want to drop it in the chat, you can do that as well.
What is you guys' contact information for Reach? I don't.
Yeah, that'd be great to drop in the chat. And then as usual, I'll be sending out an email tonight to all of the participants in the call, and I'll have both presentations and contact information for our presenters. So you can feel free to reach out to them directly. Great question.
Thank you. I'll send you guys an email.
Perfect. Yeah, I just posted that in the chat. And again, so the Reach team has a wide range of resources. Again, we don't provide insurance directly, but we have a great deal of experience with our small contractors and developers that are seeking those things, and we kind of know some good places for you to go. And so we have some recommendations that we could provide as well, depending on your particular situation.
Sonia, did you have a question?
I did. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. So as a developer, obviously the insurance is important. At what point do we start inquiring? Because we can start with an idea about a development and it can change over time, right? But at the same time, I'm sure we don't want to wait last minute.
Absolutely.
So at what point do we start, getting involved with the insurance,
So I would say at the time that you are putting your business plan together, whether it's for a particular development or just your business plan as a whole, those are costs that you're going to want to have inserted into your plan. And so I would start, I don't think there's a time that is too early for you to at least gather the information. Now, you don't necessarily need to pull the trigger on it right away, but to have those conversations. And then also to, I always say you should talk with a number of different insurance agents and bonding companies, because you're going to want to interview them to figure out which one is going to be the best fit for you. Some folks are going to be very knowledgeable, some are not. Some will work better with small companies. Some only want large companies and might not pay you the attention. And so it's going to be up to you to figure out what is going to be the absolute best fit for your company.
Hey, Winsley, in the Developer Academy, we kind of gather a list of what we call friendlies, folks like you all on this call who will answer the phone and speak straight to the people who've been through the course. Is that something that you do through the REACH program as well for those entities? Like you have a list of folks that you've referred to?
Yes, we have some favorites. Typically as the chamber and people call us up, our official answer is supposed to be, we have many members that are great and can do these things. They're all wonderful, but some are more wonderfuler than others. I just made up a word there.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Winsley, Frank, or for Matt?
So Frank, when you looked at getting insurance, or do you have any tips or horror stories or?
Plenty of horror stories. too many in the time we have allowed it. But I think to Winsley's point that he made earlier, please go out and interview a number of folks to make sure that they do fit with you, that they provide the insurance or at least provide you the questions, the answers that you have for your questions. And if they don't have them, just understand how to say, hey, thank you, but no thank you, you keep it moving. My insurance, and I began much like everybody else, I had a pocket full of dreams, a head full of dreams and a pocket full of lint. So and fortunately, my wife had a great credit score, so we were good there. But and I just started out asking questions. At that time, I started with my personal insurance with State Farm and moved from there. So I got some great advice early, began to ask the questions and grew with a number of different firms. And I changed because as I excelled and my volume increased, I moved from not only my my insurance situations, but also my accounting and my bonding. So again, you just you get, I hate to say just kind of get in where you fit in at, but continue to ask the questions, especially as you move up in scale, that you have the confidence and making sure that they have the insurance to mitigate the risk. And it's all just about risk. We're all risk takers. There's just areas that you will need to be really at a heightened sense of security to ensure that the project is going to be a successful one.
All right, I have a follow-up to that, but I did want to make sure we answered Andrea's question. Oh, Winsley did in the chat about you do not have to be a member of the chamber to join the REACH program. So thank you for answering that. So my follow-up question, Frank, and this is for all of you actually, we talk in the Developer Academy about how important it is to assemble the right team. And we do have these lists of friendlies that we offer and with the more wonderfuler folks that you offer. But what are some of those good questions to ask? And I'd pose this to all of you. So Matt, when you're shopping around for a general contractor, what's a great question to ask them to help ascertain if they might be a good fit for your team? And then I'd ask the same thing about insurance companies for Winsley and Frank.
For me, shopping around for general contractors as references is a big thing to ask. You can also, talking about bonding, you can ask what their bond rates are, is a good indicator of the risk level that they're getting from their bonding company. Doesn't mean if they have a high rate, you shouldn't hire them. It just gives you some idea, eyes wide open, what you're going into.
Great.
Man, I want to dovetail in a little bit about what you said also, that they're the right firm for your project. Everybody knows we could all stop down and ask Kiewit to do our next housing project, but if it's a house, I kind of doubt, although they are very skilled and will get the project done for you, they're probably not the right fit. So let alone you just have to understand what you're asking for or understand what you're looking for, and then go out and ask for past history and successful history in those projects. So if you've got a residential project, you probably don't want to go to an industrial construction company. If you got a commercial project, you probably don't want to go to a house. Again, just you get in the right pool of contractors, and then you verify the pool sizes. You don't need a $150 million firm to do your $300,000 home. So again, just ask the questions, kind of ask around, ask your trusted friends and your trusted league of counsel, because again, to your point, Angela, the very first things we'll tell folks is to create your bail team, which is going to be your banker, your accountant, your insurance, and your lawyer. So those are your intimate folks that you need to have at all times on speed dial, and to ask them about references even from them, because they've been in the game, they've understood it, and you can also gain a wealth of knowledge and manage yourself around a whole minefield of bombs and potholes that will just sidetrack your project.
And with that bail team, they are going to, if you get one of those that is really good and they know the development field, they're also going to know the others. They're going to know the accountants, the insurance folks, all of the folks that are kind of the people that really understand that industry, and they're going to be able to help guide you to others. And so kind of to add on or to the pile here of what everybody else has said, finding those folks that work with other firms that are like yours already. So if somebody works only with the large companies, like, oh, well, we can do yours as well. Maybe you want to work with somebody that already works with people like yours, so they have the experience, they maybe have a better understanding and empathy about exactly what you're going through. They have seen other people in your situation run into brick walls, and they can steer you around those brick walls.
The hard thing in this day and age, I think you're going to find, is you're going to struggle to start to find people and then potentially want to settle for the first heartbeat you get that starts talking back to you. Try not to do that. Just keep talking. The more people you can get involved, the better off you are. And I know it's hard, but don't just settle for somebody that says they're going to be there.
Somebody who answers the phone. Yeah. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We keep reiterating that this is a long game, not a short game.
You bet. It's a marathon versus a sprint. So just one thing, Andrea did ask about the to be a REACH membership, and we did note that it was free. We also, if you are a REACH member, you can get a chamber membership the first year at half price. So again, we can make it very beneficial for you to to come into the REACH team because we are free and you can utilize our resources, but also become a chamber member at half the price for the first year.
And the chamber is good for networking, getting to know folks. We always say the more people you know, the luckier you get. And so Matt, your answer about finding a general contractor and doing references. References are extremely important. I'd also suggest doing a little cyber stalking. You get out there and do the Google searches. Sometimes a single Google search can save you a lot of pain. Now, again, anything that's out there on the internet, you're going to have to take with a grain of salt and figure out what is really real, what's not. But sometimes there are some very solid things, or you'll see a pattern, or, hey, this guy just got indicted. Maybe those are things that you want to avoid.
Maybe. That's good advice, Winsley. Are there any closing comments that our panelists have for our emerging developers? Any last minute words of advice or wisdom or encouragement that you'd like to give them before we wrap up today?
I'll just say that there's no way for any small business to know all of the things that they need to know. It's absolutely important to get a team of folks around you, those professionals that you're going to pay, but then also find yourself a mentor, somebody who's been down that road before. They can help point out some things, give you a little guidance, and just even that moral support, because there's going to be times you're going to be like, oh my goodness, this is crappy. I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But just somebody who's going to be able to help guide you and give you that support. Just know that there are also a great deal of resources that are out there. Some are at no cost. There's lots of different agencies and technical assistance providers that can help at no cost. And then recognizing the times when you are really actually going to have to dig deep in your pocket and make that investment in your business to pay a professional that's going to, give you the right advice. Attorneys, accountants, those are both professions that should save you at least as much money as you're paying them. And I think that they are investments and not expenses.
Matt, did you have any closing words?
Persistence is going to get this done, right? It's going to be hard and it's going to take a lot of effort, but I think Winsley's right. You're not going to know everything. Nobody expects you to know everything. Get a good team, make mistakes, learn from them, go on to the next one.
Frank, any last words?
No, not too much beyond just, keep your head up and ask the question. There's never a silly question, and surround yourself with the absolute best people you can, and just keep going.
Well said. And you guys are some of the best people I know. So thank you for your time today. Thank you to all of our participants. I'll send out a recording. Frank and Winsley, if I could get your presentation, I'll send that out to everyone as well, especially folks who have to tune into the recording. All right. Have a good Wednesday, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.